welcome the change. For too long, those fluent in the good grammar of civility have deployed decorum to mask agendas of cruelty. Many of these people have been betrayed by the established order. But in our administration, their needs will be met. Their hopes and dreams and interests will be reflected transparently in government. They will shape our future. And if for too long these communities have existed as distinct from one another, we will draw this city closer together. We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. As of this morning, 16 of our fellow New Yorkers have passed away outside during this brutal stretch of cold. In 13 of these cases, preliminary findings indicate that hypothermia played a role.
So now that the death toll for New York City's homeless population over the past couple of weeks has reached 16, 13 of which have been confirmed as of right now to have died as a result of hypothermia. The other 3 have been ruled drug overdoses at this point in time. We are officially past the threshold of what is normal in terms of homeless population deaths out in the cold for an entire year. And again, this is just over a 2-week period. It turns out that warmth of collectivism is quite frigid, it is quite deadly, and this is another example of what I have dubbed homicidal empathy from Zohran Mamdani, because as we talked about multiple times, dating back to when he announced this policy change as the mayor-elect, Mamdani decided that he was going to end homeless sweeps, which have the aim of dismantling these homeless encampments and pressuring these people with the force of government into actual shelters, even if it's just for a night, so that they don't die out in the cold, because he believed that was so cruel, so terrible and awful. So everyone is now taking shots at the New York City mayor, even former Mayor Eric Adams, who recently reposted a video that he dropped back in December of last year, which basically said that this was going to happen and that Mamdani is an absolute idiot if he continues down this track. So this is what we're going to talk about today. This is what we're going to discuss. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Earlier today, Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani announced that once he takes office on January 1st, he'll stop sweeping homeless encampments across our city. I won't criticize him on every issue, but when a policy harms New Yorkers, I have to speak up. Showing compassion for those sleeping on the streets is not a sweep. It is humane. Ending this action will create a quality of life nightmare. Just look at cities that allow encampments and you'll see the damage. Worse, leaving people to suffer in the cold isn't just neglectful, it's a disgrace. Throughout the last close to 4 years, I was adamant about cleaning those encampments because we cannot tolerate a city that turns a blind eye to human suffering. I urge the incoming administration to rethink this, and I urge New Yorkers to raise their voices. Let's call it what it is. Labeling the abandonment of our homeless neighbors as progress is a slap in the face to real progress. It's not just misguided, it's shameful. And we need to call it out for the disgrace that it is.
So a couple of things are notable about that video from Eric Adams that, again, was posted on December 5th of last year, coincidentally the same exact day that I put out my video criticizing this policy from Mamdani. And first and foremost, and this should be obvious, is the fact that Mayor Eric Adams cannot pronounce Mamdani's name, and that is absolutely hilarious.
Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani.
But on the more substantive point, Adams is 100% right. This policy, which is disguised as compassion, is in fact cruelty. And in reality, Mamdani talking about how, we need to actually judge based on outcomes.
And what I have said consistently, first as a candidate, now as the mayor, is that outcomes are how we judge ourselves.
Doesn't stand up to scrutiny when the outcomes are people dying, and Mamdani is doubling down on the policy. Again, this is homicidal empathy. But in addition to that, Mamdani is doing the other thing that he likes to do more than actually, saving the lives of the homeless people that he pretends to care so hard about, which is produce viral videos about how he's doing this or that project in New York City, so that way you guys can can enjoy all the wonders of the city. Unless, of course, you're homeless, then you could freeze to death while enjoying those wonders.
I'm here at the top of the David Dinkins Municipal Building. This is one of the most magnificent government buildings in the world. As we begin to celebrate Black History Month, it felt fitting to honor the legacy of our city's first Black mayor right here. From up here, you can see everything, from MetLife Stadium all the way to Bushwick. This building belongs to the people of this city, but for too long, most New Yorkers have been shut out of it. That's coming to an end. We're opening the rooftop of the Dinkins Municipal Building to the public. Starting this June, the city will offer guided tours of this extraordinary civic landmark. You'll be able to reserve free tickets online and go up in small groups.
I know you might feel like the rich kid communist thing gets played out a lot, but in reality and actuality, what is this but a perfect example, a perfect distillation of these rich kids who have had everything handed to them throughout their entire lives by their parents, who have been given privileges left and right throughout their entire existence, only to come to office to actually get into a position to govern or advocate for policy and be an absolute buffoon in every possible way. This particular stunt right here, apparently Mamdani had the entire press corps waiting out in the cold for like 20-30 minutes because he invited them to come to the Dinkins building prior to filming this stupid ass video with the drone shots and all of that, because he thought this was the most important thing to do right now in this moment, as New Yorkers are freezing in the cold, as trash pickup has been extraordinarily delayed, and as a bunch of different problems have cropped up again in the early days of his mayorship. He's deciding to do this to talk about, wow, isn't this going to be great? This is going to be a free attraction open to all you regular ordinary New Yorkers June of this year when it's much warmer. Excuse me, Mr. Dead Homeless Person that's frozen to the ground. I'm trying to step over you in order to make this announcement. It's absolutely embarrassing. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. But again, this is to be expected. Again, this is not a post-diction. I'm not looking back on a policy change that Mamdani put into place and saying after the fact that it's going to be a disaster. I put out many videos talking about this, including one that I shot right before the storm actually came in, explaining how ending these homeless sweeps while you had the cold leading up is going to be a major problem. And also, it's not just me. We also had Marsha Kramer from CBS News, the local affiliate over here in New York, question him about this very thing, explain to him that a lot of these people don't want to go to the shelters because they find the conditions and the compromise on their lifestyle to be too cumbersome, and Mamdani just doubled down on the idea that they're going to convince them extra hard.
So I took the problem to the mayor himself, showing him video of people camped on the street in such frigid weather. What is your office going to do about it, and is it acceptable, given the fact that it's 21 degrees, for these people to be there on the street, on the Upper West Side, and getting no help?
And guess what? That convincing didn't work. 16 people dead, 13 as a result of the cold. Again, basically an entire year's worth of homeless people dying out in the cold in just 2 weeks. And Mamdani is talking about opening up this stupid ass Dinkins building so you can go to an observatory and you don't have to pay a charge for that, because that's what his number one priority is. Free death in the cold, free observatory, free buses and whatnot. Just get on board with free, because everything is going to be all right. Again, unless you're actually among the most vulnerable people in the city of New York. But one of the most ridiculous criticisms that I've received on social media for pointing this out time and time again, for highlighting these instances, is the fact that a number of people have decided that, you know, homeless people dying isn't actually the problem. The real problem, if you guys don't know, if you guys are unaware, are people like me who warned about this back in December, people like Eric Adams who warned about this back in December, the local news affiliates who warned about this before, the New York Post who also warned about this before, not actually caring as much about the homeless as Zohran Mamdani. In fact, a Zohran Mamdani strategist was complaining about the fact that all these people are talking about homeless New Yorkers dying, the most vulnerable people in our city suffering due to this Mamdani policy, but in reality, they don't actually care about the homeless as much as Zohran Mamdani does. So this comes from Chris Sosa, who describes himself as a political consultant in the world's greatest city, a queer vegan vegan metalhead, Liberation for All, DMs open, he, him, / whatever you like for the pronouns. And as you can see right here, Chris Sosa, the bitch-made guy that he actually is, decided to block me after I responded to this tweet. And it says the following: the anti-Mamdani folks are using homeless New Yorkers freezing to death to knock the Muslim mayor that they hate while they oppose shelters, social services, and housing might be the most ghoulish people in the entire city. Now, it's hard to believe that Chris Sosa, who describes himself as a vegan, can also simultaneously have Mamdani's meat shoved so far down his throat and write a stupid-ass comment like this. But the basic premise of this is, of course, you don't care enough about the homeless, unlike Mamdani, who's letting the homeless people die, so you should not be able to criticize Mamdani for letting these homeless people die because Mamdani cares so much about the homeless. Again, the homeless that he's letting die by ending the policy of homeless sweeps, which of course is leading to their deaths. Again, these people go feelings over facts all the time, and in addition to that, I will also point out that this is a person who is invoking Mamdani's Muslim identity in order to excuse his terrible policy. But in reality, Bill de Blasio also had terrible policies in relation to homelessness. He also had, early on in his term, a disastrous response to a snowstorm situation. However, in that particular situation, he didn't want to do salt anymore because it was allegedly really bad for the environment. So 3 inches of snow ended up crippling all of New York City, and none of the criticisms about Bill de Blasio had to do with his potential religious identity or anything of the sort. It was all focused on his bad and terrible policy. But for Chris Sosa, again, who says DMs are open, looking for conversation, looking for debate, immediately blocked me because he's an absolute coward in every possible way, and he knows that he's endorsing a policy that led directly to the deaths of these homeless people, but he doesn't give a damn about that, because as long as he can convince other left-wing people that they care harder about the homeless than you ingenuine people who would actually have this cruel policy that would, keep these homeless people alive and off the street during these frigid temperatures, he thinks that is a victory. He wants to run with that narrative, and again, this appears to be the strategy of almost all the Mamdani defenders. Look, make no mistake about it, this is cruelty masquerading as empathy, or as I like to call it, homicidal empathy, which I may have stolen from a YouTube commenter. Thank you for the person who actually came up with that term. And the idea that Mamdani is going to double down, ask even harder, and only actually remove people from the streets if they present themselves as a danger to themselves or others, which again, sounds like it's more related to a criminal issue, not a cold weather issue, is absurd, ridiculous, and asinine. And for those of you who are saying, well, Sean, you gotta give him time, you gotta actually have a situation where he's able to build the infrastructure of social workers and, of course, supportive housing for the homeless people before you actually judge him, that would be perfectly fine. And honestly, I would give Mamdani, who I absolutely despise, that level of grace if he wasn't actively implementing the not removing these people from the street policy right now. Once you do that, you're saying that you're ready to deal with this. Once you do that, you're saying it's go time. You already have the supportive services ready to roll, because otherwise you're just saying it's perfectly fine to leave them out on the streets to die, because oh my god, what would we do without the freedom of homeless degenerates to set up vagrant camps all over New York City? It would absolutely be shameful if we abridged their god-tier rights to ruin the city, to lower the quality of life of everyone, and of course to get themselves killed while doing so. And by the way, while Mayor Eric Adams is obviously 100% right, and him reposting this video that criticized Mamdani, again, it shows that we are first guessing Mamdani, we're not second guessing him in this regard, I do want to point out that if he managed to dodge controversy a little bit better as mayor of New York City, if he managed to not be what a borough president typically is, which is incredibly sketch, then he would have walked to a second term. But unfortunately, Mayor Eric Adams bungled this, and now we have a communist, again, who is motivated by homicidal empathy. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via support links in the description of this video. Catch me on Timcast Wednesday night at, I think, 8 p.m. Eastern. Till next time.